Hello, happy Thursday. Welcome to a Lunch and Learn with Purse Strings. My name is Maggie Nielsen, and I'm a partner here at Purse Strings. And we like to do these lives to highlight our professionals' expertise, get some information out there about real women's stories and how our professionals are really helping them. Our professionals are what we call our Purse Strings approved professionals. They have all been vetted and approved by Purse Strings as they love to serve the female market and really focus on this in their practice. And Joshua is one of our Purse Strings approved professionals. So we're so excited to have him here today. So before we dive into all the fun, Joshua, could you give us a little intro of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. My name is Joshua Dunlop. I co-founded NewMaker Financial, and NewMaker Financial is a financial planning firm that is dedicated to people in transition, more specifically women in transition. So we're talking about divorce, widowhood, general bereavement, like if you lost a parent, disability, but we also consider retirement to be, an often spoke about but not spoken about in that way transition.
Awesome. Yeah. And where are you located?
We're in Denver, Colorado, but we
Awesome.
are able to take clients from all over the country.
Perfect. So yeah, we're going to kind of talk about Nancy's story today. Of course, that's a different name than she has, but we're going to call her Nancy today, and her story about kind of coming to you, and her transition was more about divorce.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to, real quick before I forget, remind anyone that if they have questions along the way, throw them in the chat. If you're watching the replay, you can definitely throw them in the comments, and we'll work on getting back to those. But when Joan first came to you, what were some of like the main worries that kind of brought her, through the door onto the Zoom screen to meet with you?
Yeah, so I think the thing that brought her to us, and the thing that brings a lot of our clients to us, is that they were the person within the relationship who didn't handle the finances. Mm-hmm. And now suddenly the person who did handle the finances, or at least that part of the finances that involved with, investing and looking towards the future, if she wasn't the person who was doing that, then suddenly it's all on your plate and you're the one who has to get through it. So just understanding her financial situation was one of the most important things, and kind of getting her arm around it. But she came to us when she was in the middle of a divorce, and she had realized that she was having a difficult time advocating for herself because she didn't know what she didn't know.
Yeah.
And what's scary is that, in most situations, when you don't know what you don't know, it's scary, but it's even more scary when the other side might know what you don't know, right? When the ex knows these things
and they know that you don't know it.
Right. Situations when you don't know what you don't know, it's scary, but it's even more scary when the other side might know what you don't know.
And they know that you don't know it.
Right. And they know that you don't know it. And so that there's a lot of people come to us in the middle of a divorce because their lawyer just isn't able to give them everything when it comes to the financial side. And if they are able to give them everything, it comes at a $400 per hour price tag. So that's really where we come in. And because she was in the middle of the divorce, she was just really interested in saving her pension. Her pension was kind of her baby. That was what she had been putting into her entire life. But she also wanted to understand the strengths and weaknesses and begin healing from the marriage, begin healing from the end of that marriage.
Yeah. And I know when we were talking about this, and, I've never been through divorce, but know many women who have, and it's a time where you kind of lose yourself. You might, feel very like depressed or anxious, or because you don't know what's next. It is a big change. And then adding the finances and navigating all that on top of it can be a lot to deal with. Yeah. And so, how do you kind of prioritize like some of these concerns that she came to you with about, the pension and saving as much as possible and kind of healing from this marriage? How do you even get started on these different things?
A lot of times we're going to let the client give the first go. So, we'll let Joan say, hey, what's most important to you? And that's how we prioritize a lot of those things. Bottom line, though, sometimes people have a particular attachment to an issue, right? That issue may seem like life and death to them. But in the broad scheme of things, it might not be the biggest thing, right? It might just be the biggest thing right there in that moment. So sometimes if a client like Joan is going to give us kind of her priorities, and we see some priorities that might be, maybe not as important to the future as some of the priorities, we'll tell them that, and we'll kind of prioritize a little bit more with them from there.
Yeah, definitely. And so I know two of the things were like, making sure she had enough money to live comfortably, and then, really understanding her strengths and weaknesses around finances.
Yeah.
And so I think when we were talking about this, you said that you start with like a budget and financial planning to really conquer these two questions slash fears.
Yeah.
Um, and so can you kind of dive into like why you choose that and how that process kind of works?
Absolutely. I think that budgeting is going to be the most important thing for just about
Yeah.
anybody who doesn't have their arms around finances. And so we start with budgeting for first off, the reason that it's so important. But secondly, so often, if somebody is looking into a room and it's dark and they can't see it very well, the budget is that light switch. And whether the person really recognizes it or not up front, they flip that light switch on and suddenly things are very visible. And we have something called the shame-free budget where, because a lot of times when you're looking at that, there's a lot of room for shame, and shame isn't really productive to healing. Joan's
Right.
purpose was to heal. And so pointing out all the ways that she's not doing the best when it comes to her finances is not going to be productive to
No.
getting to that point. Right. So, doing the budget is going to be a way for us not only to show her what she's doing, to help get her focused on the right things, but when she has those irrational fears down the road, because anybody going through a divorce, anybody going through a life transition, male or female, they're all going to have these irrational fears.
Oh yeah.
And for Joan, when she has those irrational fears, we suddenly have something concrete that we created together that we can point to. The budget, and then the budget leading into the plan. These are two things that look at today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
And these things are the foundation upon which we build not only her own security, but also facilitate that healing journey as well.
Yeah, because with that budget, having a concern of like, will I have enough to live comfortably? It kind of lays out, okay, with a rent kind of maybe at this price and some utilities and these different things that you're already kind of buying, but we're going to adjust. Then it's like, okay, well, I know I need 3,500 every month.
Yeah.
And I can see that's coming in, through these different sources, since, you laid out the plan of where my income is coming in from, and seeing, okay, well, at least I know I get 4,000 every month. So basics are covered.
Yeah.
And that's when you kind of get that sigh of relief for those irrational thoughts when they come through the door.
Exactly. And if I can just add something about divorce.
Yeah, please.
The sworn financial statement is a very important early stage of the divorce. And many lawyers view that sworn financial statement as a very important legal document. They want it to say what they want it to say. And so often they're going to do everything in their power to, not lie, but they're going to do everything in their power to have that final number be zero or negative. Because if that final number can be really, really, really low, it opens up a lot more opportunities for them in the court case.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people are looking at this sworn financial statement, and it's made to look as close as it can possibly be. And people are looking at it and they're saying, my God, this is a complete mess. And so sometimes the sworn financial statement is feeding into those insecurities. It's telling people you're not as good as you may think you are, and being able to pull them away from that and look at it from a more measured angle, I think, is very important.
Definitely. As in most of those things we're not always looking at, or like, we're not as well versed in. So we're trying to, read a foreign map and understand what it means to us.
Absolutely.
And so then I know at the beginning you said that her pension was really important to her. That was something that she was really working on and wanted to hold on to. And so what was kind of the way you kind of approached going about that? Because I know you kind of manage the finances, but at the end of the day, the lawyers and the legal side decides how things are kind of cut and diced up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're totally right. And when it comes to situations like, the pension, there is only so much we can do. But what we can do in that situation is, first off, we can determine whether or not the pension is really that serious a situation. Right. Now, obviously, in this particular situation, of course, it's going to be important, right? It's a pension.
Yeah.
But we do have other times where people have money issues that, like they want to keep the house. And it turns out that keeping the house, you'd have to refinance it at a higher interest rate now. And it would, it turns out that the situation doesn't even work if you keep the house, right?
Yeah.
So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to look into that and say, is this really an issue that is as big as it seems?
Hmm.
Or is this something that's not so big? And once we make that clear, and once we find that, yes, this is a really big deal, we can provide the attorney with information related to that, to
Mm.
basically say, if the court doesn't want to award that pension, 100% to them, there's a financial plan in the works
Hmm.
that says that if they don't get this financial plan, then they might not make it. And not all courts are going to give any kind of credence to that.
Yeah.
But some courts do, and that is something else that we can do. We can advocate for them by making the lawyer and the courts aware of the seriousness of that particular ask.
And I really like that because, first of all, you have to know what you're fighting for, if it's worth fighting for at all. Kind of like the home example. But then when you know that it is that important to you, you can bring those facts and stats to the table rather just being like, this is important to me, but it's like, no, this is why, because that helps me stay afloat.
Exactly.
Which is a difference than just like, because I want it and I want it because I want it.
Yeah, and I'll give you just another really quick example. We
Yeah.
had a client who, what they wanted to do more than anything is they wanted to keep the house, but keep everybody in the house, like cohabitate with their ex.
Oh,
And this
why?
was so important to both of them because they were so guilty about what they were doing to their kids.
Mm.
And they wanted to keep things as normal as possible with the kids. And at the end of the day, again, it comes down to, is this a realistic financial issue, or is this an emotional issue?
Yeah.
And for them, it turned out to be an emotional issue, because once they talked to the kids were like, no, 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 we don't want you guys living together while you're divorced. Like,
We're
and
not enjoying this.
yeah, there was all this work that went into accommodating children who didn't even want what the parents thought they wanted.
Yeah.
And so there's so many situations that we run into where the biggest things in the world to them at that moment, they're not financial things,
Hmm.
but they conflate them with financial things. So they
Yeah.
view them from that emotional lens, but they really see them as financial efforts.
It's almost an easy scapegoat because then it's financials and I don't have to deal with my emotions. And it's like,
Yep.
which one do you want to deal with? Because some people hate emotions, some people hate finance. It's like, which one can be a scapegoat?
Yeah, and it's really easy and probably very prevalent in this country to avoid money. And so if you can take all your emotions and stuff them behind something that's already easy to avoid, it's
Yep.
easy to avoid those emotions. And we run into that probably more than anything else, doing what we do.
I'm glad they talk to the kids there because, yeah, nobody wants to live in a house like that. That just
Yeah.
sounds uncomfortable. And then you say you fought for nothing.
And when we brought up talking to the kids, it was one of those things where they had never thought of it. And Mike was like, my God, why didn't we talk to the kids about it first?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so then in Joan's story and kind of, bringing into this emotion, divorce is an emotional time. And I know she kind of wanted to start healing from the end of her marriage, which your team was able to kind of help with this fear as well. Can you kind of share what you did there?
Yeah. So, as far as being able to go, and I think that this is a great place to talk about this question, because it comes down to what is emotional and what is financial.
Yeah.
And granted, the issues are different. They're a bifurcated issue, but they share so much in common, and they have so many, tendrils reaching out between each other, that it's hard to know which one is which. And so from a financial angle, we try to build that foundation, build that confidence, slay those dragons of insecurity that are going to wake you up at 11:30 at night. We feel like that is the best that we can do when it comes to facilitating somebody's emotional journey forward, because divorce is so often about the past. It's so often about insecurity and problems. We really like to focus people on this new journey, this new phase of their life,
Yeah.
which doesn't just come with negatives. It comes with positives. In fact, most of the divorcees that we've worked with have come back and told us, this was actually a positive thing at the end of the day.
Right.
I just couldn't see it at that time. And so that's how we're going to help, is by, illuminating those areas so that they can know that they're going to be okay. But as far as the emotional side, that's also a very important side. And we're not therapists, so we can't necessarily help with that. But we do have an extensive network of therapists that are specialists in anything from divorcing a narcissist all the way to, bettering your relationship with money and
Yep.
everywhere in between. And so we really like to refer in that regard as well.
Yeah, I love that because once you figure out the finances, still, if you're in a bad headspace, not much is getting done.
Yeah.
Um, and then, one of my most excited things I was, to talk about this was I know in the story, Joan wanted to be excited to begin that new phase of life. And you guys were kind of able to help her bring her there because I think she ended up, going on a full girls trip then?
Yep. Yep. And
And
that
that's kind of,
was, go ahead.
well, I was just say that's, kind of the nice icing on the cake to get a new start. And I think it's interesting when you first start and you're so anxious about your finances and things like this, and it turns into, wait, I can actually afford a trip with my girls and do everything else. I was able to get the mental health and, pay for all these things that at first you thought were unreachable. And now you're like, no, I'm on vacation with my best friend.
The thing that we always like to talk about and what we talk about with every client is that investment has come to be seen as putting money in something that's going to return money to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a pretty broad and pretty good definition of investments. But I think that what people don't see as investments that are also investments are things like hiring an attorney for your divorce,
Mm-hmm.
hiring a financial planner for your financial situation. But even so, like the girls' trip, I think was an investment too, because
Yeah.
it got her away from that. And she was only able to really truly let go of that cash and take that trip and exchange it for a trip when she finally felt secure enough that she didn't need all that extra money that she was going to use on the trip. And
Right.
so, getting people to that emotional spot and giving them something to look forward to, we think is a really important part of financial planning, because having that vision for the future is what's going to keep you from getting caught up in your past.
Yeah. And even though you don't get like a cash investment back, I mean, you invested in yourself, your cup is full, and you can, then have a better mind. You also got to treat yourself after a while. I mean, that's a rough year or two that you just went through. You deserve to get out and go have some fun.
Yeah. And it's not going to, and you deserve to be able to go out and have some fun and not spend sleepless nights wondering if it's the right thing to do.
Right. You can actually enjoy it while it's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Wild thoughts.
You're right. Yeah.
Um,
Like paying money for something and enjoying it shouldn't be as wild of a thought as it so often is.
it is. But if you feel guilty the whole time, it's really not enjoyable and should just save the money to start with. And so can you kind of tell us, where Joan is at today? I'm assuming the divorce is closed. What's that relationship kind of look like between the two of you?
Yeah, now that that's done, one of the benefits of going through the boots on the ground, hardcore financial planning that we go through is once you're done with it, we know you pretty well.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be able to monitor that going forward. And because we incorporate so many elements of, your vision of the future and, your kind of a emotional state and your values and things like that, because we get to know you in that way as well, it's much easier for us to know how to invest your money, for us to
Mm-hmm.
be able to talk about those dreams and those visions every year going into the future.
Yeah.
So our professional relationship looks like that, where we're continuing to monitor it. For her, though, she did finish the divorce last year, and for this year, she has just been really enjoying time with her kids.
Mm-hmm.
And really, like I said, in figuring out what her new phase is going to look like.
Yeah.
The other thing that I see so often is people will pick up hobbies that they had from before the relationship. Like
Right.
you stop them right around the time of the relationship, and then it's 25 years later, and suddenly they've picked that habit back up. They've decided that they want to get
Yeah.
back into that. And it's just so great to see people exploring new and interesting versions of themselves outside of the context of that other person. And that's absolutely what she's doing, is continuing
Nice.
to learn and grow about herself.
Yeah, I love that. You got to take yourself on those great dates and spend time with your kids and really enjoy that time now that she's single again and hopefully
Yeah.
living her best life.
Yeah. And granted, it's not all, roses. There's
Yeah.
things that she can be doing better, and as financial planners, we don't mince any words with that. We let her know, the things that she can be doing better. Again,
Right.
it doesn't come from that shame or guilt perspective, but rather just as an objective fact. And yeah, but being able to talk, going again on that boots on the ground situation during the divorce, it gives us that relationship where we can tell her those things, and she doesn't take it personally, or know that, she knows that she's going to be fine, and that she
Yeah.
has the ability and agency to make it better.
And really having someone who goes through this, situation with you and then follows you throughout, you really understand what they walked away with, how to make the best of that, and how to like, okay, now you can walk them through a couple other things like, all right, let's update the estate plan, let's update the insurance documents so these things don't go back to your ex, like, which is so great because there are so many things, yeah, you don't know that you need to do or you forget that you need to do. And so to have you walk this line and be like, we also got this and we need to do this now is so helpful, I feel.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think financial planners are great at doing all the financial planning stuff. But at the end of the day, sometimes what we are too is we're somebody's secretary. We're the person who
Yeah.
keeps all the stuff on the list and keeps poking them about it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be boiled down to just that, where we're like the estate planning, like the
Hmm.
taxes, all of that stuff. We're there to help make sure she knows what she doesn't know or what she
Yeah.
didn't, in every respect.
Especially, yeah, again, if this is your first time kind of managing everything on your own, it's like, reminder, we have to get this health insurance and it needs to be covering these. We want to make sure it covers these three things or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so one thing I love to have these conversations is just to show that you guys just don't take assets and invest them. Some people do, but not everyone. It is this whole plan. It's a whole picture. We know you have a dynamic life. And so it's not just like, hey, I'll invest this money. Good luck with everything else out there. But like, hey, let's walk you through and see every single aspect and the way we can enhance your whole life together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the reasons that we enjoy working with women so much, is because so often women, and men will do this too, but I would say more often women are less likely to compartmentalize,
Hmm.
and they're more likely to look at things as a holistic journey. And that's what financial planning is,
Yeah.
is a holistic, living, breathing journey that you're taking along with you. And so we found that actually, there's always people out there that are going to say things like women are bad investors, or women are this, or women are that. We found the exact opposite to be true. We
Oh,
found
yeah.
that because of the outlook that women have, doing things like true financial planning is absolutely in their wheelhouse. A lot of
Yeah.
times more so than their male counterparts.
Definitely. I wish we can carpetiment, I can't even say that word, a little bit more just so things turn off, but that's not the way it is always. So,
Yeah.
but I appreciate, you coming on here and really walking us through Joan's story to kind of really highlight what your expertise are, how you can really help other women in these situations, and to see how successful the process can really be.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we didn't touch on today that you want to make sure is shared?
No, I think we touched on everything. So
Awesome. Well, yeah, anyone listening, if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to Josh or reach out to Purse Strings, as we're happy to help. And, set up a call. I know everyone through Purse Strings has like a free 20-minute complimentary session just to make sure it's a good fit for everybody. And jump into that conversation. As you can tell, Joshua's very inviting, ready to just help you out wherever you're at. So that was it for today, and we'll talk to everyone again next week. Thank you, Joshua.
thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.